Hello, and it's a pleasure to be learning with you. I'd like to learn a little bit today about a central element of Purim that we don't typically discuss. And as I've said before, certainly growing up, our understanding of Purim in my childhood was that it was like a fun kids holiday. It wasn't necessarily so meaningful, deeply meaningful. But interestingly, in the rabbinic mindset, Purim takes on a really outsized position as being deeply central to the Jewish and maybe even to the human experience. And there's one lesson that I like to read, certainly to read again for myself every year, and I'd like to share it with you. Comes from a book called The Pachad Yitzchak, authored by a great sage of the 20th century, Yitzchak Hutner, who lived in Europe, Israel, and America. And he begins by noting that it says at the end of Megillat Esther that the reminiscences, the memories of what happened in the Purim story in Megillat Esther will never be forgotten. V'zichram lo yasuf mizaram. Zaram, Zerah, their descendants, that's the Jewish people, will never ever forget what happened on Purim. Okay, so that seems fair. Certainly Megillat Esther will want to sort of praise itself and say that this will never be forgotten. But the sages take that notion and really dig deep into it. And there is a Midrash Mishle, which states, Afilu bizman shekol hamoadim hitbatlu, even in the future time when all of the holidays will no longer be kept, Purim lo yitbatel, shenemar v'zichram lo yasuf mizaram. Purim, the holiday of Purim, will never stop being celebrated by the Jewish people. And the proof text is that phrase in Megillat Esther that the memories of Purim will never cease from the descendants of the Jews. So that is a very powerful idea. First of all, the notion that in the future, and when the sages talk about the future, capital F, the Zman, capital Zion, that's this sort of future, perhaps messianic time when things will generally on earth, they're either, it's a little unclear what it'll look like in Jewish thought, world peace, that'd be nice. Things will be different. And the Jews won't follow the holidays. That in of itself is fascinating to unpack. Which holidays? It says the Moadim. So the Moadim can either mean all of the holidays, or perhaps more typically the ones that follow the agricultural cycle. So that might specifically refer to Pesach, Passover, and Shavuot, and Sukkot. Excuse me, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. So we'd have to think about that really and unpack that. What does it mean that in the future, possibly those holidays will not be followed at all? But whatever that means, Purim will never stop being followed by the Jewish people. So why? What is so special about Purim that it will always be there for us? And he is now going to explain that. Let's explain. He begins with a parable. Two people, imagine two people who were each given a task. They were night watchmen. And they were told, people are going to be coming by. We want you to assess who they are. Make sure we know who they are. Like a good night watchman. I assume that's what a night watchman does. I've never done that myself. I can only imagine. The first person is given a lantern. That's a lantern here. And when someone walks by, we'll hold up the lantern to their faces, to look at their faces. Say, once their faces are illuminated, I can see whether you're someone I know, friend or foe. Fine. L'hasheni lo haya ner, but the second person was not given a lantern. The second person is not given a lantern. So how are they supposed to detect people in the night? They're supposed to, what they do is they have to train themselves and instill in themselves new tendencies, new powers, new abilities to figure out who people are in the darkness. It's hard to do. You can't do it normally. So what else can you do? Maybe you train your ear, your sense of smell. You talk to people in a certain way to suss out who they are. But you can't use the light. Certainly, during the night, the person who has the lantern will be more effective, right, at seeing who people are. They can use the light. But what happens when, he now says, when the sun rises, harishon yichabet nero, the first person puts out his lantern. Kol hakochot shenitna lo avodato b'layla la'or haner mutarim hem achshav. Any power or any ability that he had to detect who people were in the night that derived from the lantern, as soon as the light comes up, that's no longer helpful to him. Le'umat zot hasheni, but the second person, achshav gam hu makir et anashim. Certainly he too can detect people at nighttime as well. Just had a comment from Rafi Megarik. Yes, this is Purim 34, and I love it as well. Every year, have to read it. It's quite beautiful and potent. I think potent for Jewish life year round. The second person, any capacity, any trait that they were able to instill in themselves during the night to figure out who people are, that remains with them during the day. So the examples I gave, if they worked on their sense of hearing, smell, taste, their sixth sense, that elusive sixth sense, that gut feeling, they worked on that as well. That all stays with them now that it's day. Mikol makom, kochot hashmiya v'hakshavat yitzra ba'avadato b'choshech, the sense of hearing, listening, detecting that they created or strengthened in themselves in the nighttime, le'olam nisharim kinyan b'nafsho, will always remain acquired in their soul. So what does this have to do with Purim? That's the parable. What does this have to do with Purim? He now notes as follows. Every year we read Purim exactly 1 month before, Purim takes place 1 month before Passover. Even when there's 2 months of Adar, some of you might know that in a typical year in the Jewish calendar, there's 12 months, but 7 out of 19 years, there's 13 months. The additional month is another Adar. But that Adar is inserted in such a way that Purim nevertheless takes place 30 days before Passover. And he says there must be some way that we're supposed to relate to them as connected, and they share something. So what do they share? So on their surface, they share a word and an idea and a relationship. The word is Anochi. The idea of Anochi that's God saying, Anochi, I am. The term, that idea comes up in both Purim and Passover. For relating to Pesach, God says in Tanakh, in the Torah, Anochi asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am the one. I took you out, you, the Israelites, out of the land of Egypt. Anochi, I, God. Anochi also comes up sort of midrashically in Purim. How so? The Talmud in Masechet Megillah asks, Esther min haTorah minayin. Is there anywhere in the 5 books of Moses where the Esther story, the whole story of Purim, can be anticipated or sort of alluded to, however obliquely? Answers the Gemara, the Talmud. Yes. When God says in Chumash, Anochi Hester Astir, I, God, Anochi, that same word, Hester Astir, will hide myself, will hide my face. I, God, will become hidden in a future time of exile. That word, Hester Astir, is, to the rabbis, they're going to say, is like the word Esther, Queen Esther. So this, when God says to the Israelites in the wilderness, I will in the future hide my face, that is seen additionally, not just its shot, simple, straightforward meaning. Not that there's anything so simple about God saying, I will hide myself. But in addition to that straightforward meaning, there's an additional allusion to the fact that in the future, there will be a person named Esther, derived from this phrase, Haster Estir, I will hide my face, says God. So those are 2 types, those are 2 ways that Anochi, God saying I, is referred to. One on Purim, one on Pesach. And I said that those also reflect 2 types of relationships between us and God. And that's what Rav Hutner in Pachad Yitzchak is now going to get into. Kilomar, that is to say, Shtei drachim yesh la l'Knesset Yisrael lahakir et ha'anochi. There are 2 ways, 2 paths that the people Israel have to recognize the Anochi, to recognize God. There's 2 types of ways that we can connect to and recognize God in the world. Al yedei geulat Mitzrayim, va'od al yedei geulat Purim. And the 2 modes can be understood as the mode of Egypt, the story of leaving Egypt, and the story of the salvation of Purim. The first, the recognition of God through the Egypt story. According to Rav Hutner, that corresponds to the idea, to the mode of the person in the parable who looks at people at night with the help of a lantern. He But the second type, the type of Purim, the recognition of Purim, which corresponds to the Anochi, the God describing God's self as Haster Astir, I will hide my face, I will hide my presence. That is like the person who had to detect people at night with no other kochot, no other abilities other than their sense of hearing, their sense of listening, of taste, their 6th sense. He's now begun to set up this beautiful parallel for us. Purim is a story that takes place at night without the help of light, an additional light shining on the subject. This corresponds to what we already know about Purim from our general knowledge. We know that Purim is the only book that fascinatingly does not have God's explicit name in it. God's name does not occur in Megillat Esther. So this also relates to a notion of not being able to clearly see God. God is Haster Astir. God is hidden in the book. Also, Purim takes place entirely in exile, in Persia, in Shushan and its environs and its the provinces surrounding it. The beginning of the story and the end of the story is under foreign rule, under Achashverosh. The end of chapter 10 doesn't which is the last chapter of Megillat Esther, it doesn't conclude with the Jews leaving Persia. In fact, chapter 10, all we learn is they get some additional taxes levied against them. Whereas Pesach starts in Egypt, and at least when it ends with the Israelites headed towards Eretz Yisrael. So again, Pesach then becomes a time when there's an additional light. That can be the light of the narrative. That can be the light of God. God is very much present in the Pesach story. There's explicit and very bolate, shining, clear examples of God's hands. There's miracles, there's plagues, God speaks. So this distinction mirrors the person with the lantern and without the lantern. Umeata namshich hakav hala. Let's follow this line of thinking. Lich sheya'aleh amud hashachar. So when the daytime rises, which happened in the story, v'hashemesh teitzei b'gvorata. The sun will shine in all of its strength. V'ha'or shel gilui elakut yeh shivatayim ke'or hachama. One idea, one understanding of the future redemption is that the sun, the light of the sun, will shine at 70-fold what it shines now. Ki az bivadai she'otam klei ha'or she'knesset Yisrael hayta zekuka lahem mikodem. Any vessel, any strength, anything that the Israelites, the Jews, had to rely on in the past to help them apprehend and understand and see God in the world, those things, yitbatzlu b'terach mamela, we won't need them. Any holiday we needed, any ritual we needed, any prayers we needed, any foods we needed to help us see God in this world, like in the Egypt story, well, in the future, God's revelation will be so strong we won't need any of those things. That is true, says Rav Hittner, for all of the other holidays. Ella, de kol zeh hu b'shar hamoadim. That's for all the other holidays. The Yisodam hu ha'or shel geulat Mitzrayim, which are all under the rubric of the Egyptian salvation. The story of Egypt, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Aval Geulah de Purim, Asher al yada Knesset Yisrael limdat atzma lahakir ta'anochi gam b'choshech uvehester. But the Purim story is about learning to see God in a time of darkness and hiddenness. We had to develop in ourselves additional powers of detection, a spiritual sensitivity, a relationship with God that did not and does not rely on seeing God explicitly or blatantly. So anything we develop in ourselves over that time stays with us. Afilu la'achar sheya'aleh amud hashachar. Even when the sun will one day rise. May it happen soon. Rav Hittner is describing for us the way in which Purim isn't just this fun kids' holiday, celebration, food, drinking. It should be all of those things, certainly. But really more than that, it's a day when we tap in to, through reading the Megillah, listening to the story, through our own actions, and participating in the communal and collective actions of the day, that we have access to this energy, to this type of relationship with the divine, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with a deeper reality that allows us, even in our current era of hiddenness and of darkness, to deepen, refine, heighten our levels of awareness, sensitivity, and connection to a deeper reality that will serve us not just on Purim, but the day after, the week after, the month after, in the years to come of our lives, and in the life of our people. And please God, that will remain with us into the future time when hope we yearn for a more illuminated world more generally. Have a Purim Sameach, a happy Purim. I look forward to learning more with you soon.